Today I found out my own mom nuked my credit score and her excuse is insane by user gullible tail 9114. Today I finally figured out why my credit score has been absolute garbage for the last couple of years. I kept blaming myself, maybe I forgot an old bill somewhere, maybe something went to collections without me noticing. I have been stressing over it for months. Turns out the reason was sitting in my own house the whole time. My mom stole my identity almost 3 years ago. Opened accounts, missed payments, racked up balances, the whole disaster package. I only found out because I applied for something super basic and the bank guy casually goes, "You've had these accounts since 2022, correct?" I swear I felt my soul leave my body. When I confronted her, hoping it was some kind of mix-up, she literally shrugged and said, "You didn't need good credit for anything anyway." Like my future docent team, I felt like rebuilding credit is just a side quest I can do on weekends. Now I am sitting here with a stack of paperwork, trying to untangle 3 years of financial chaos and realizing I basically have to rebuild my entire credit profile from scratch. I have literally gone back to the basics: tiny charges that auto-clear from my checking, zero chance of anyone else touching it, the kind of slow, boring rebuild you do with a card like Fizz because it only spends what's already in your account. It's the first thing in months that feels safe, I guess. My cousin's parents cut off my family because we didn't offer to take care of their children by user WG 123. So about 10 years ago, my uncle and his wife had their second child. He was born severely disabled, and it was found out after he was born. They stayed in a hospital for months to get him care he needed. Every other week they changed places. That my uncle was at the hospital every other week and at home every other week, you get the idea. During that time, my mother, me and my grandmother went to their house every weekend, drove 100 miles to their house. We cleaned, did the dishes, laundry, and I spent time and played with their other child who was 4 at the time. We did that for so long, we had a joke with my cousin's parents that we were a crisis group because we helped them so much. Fast forward 10 years. My uncle and his wife struggles with having a disabled child who requires constant care and attention 24/7. 3 years ago they decided to have a third child. Now they complain that their life is so hard, which I totally understand. About a week ago they sent a long paragraph to my mother of how we haven't ever helped them with their children, how their life was so much harder and how they are good people because they have a disabled child. There are many other things that have happened and many other accusations towards my mother from my uncle, but it's not my story to tell. Also worth to mention, like 3 times a week our uncle invites my 80-year-old grandmother to watch their children, and never doing anything for my grandmother, only calling her when they need a babysitter. Note, their disabled child is now 10, he is paralyzed and my grandmother can lift him, but they still leave him to her care, and because my grandmother is such a sweet woman she never has the heart to say no. They have since cut all ties to us, and I find this situation absolutely ridiculous. It is not my family's responsibility to raise their children. Also worth to mention, both of their other children are total brats who have got everything they wanted, who behave like total monkeys, for an example biting me, which my uncle responded with, "That's what my children do," while laughing. So that's it, wanted to rant about this. My parents will not allow me to have a baby shower with my family unless I invite my mean grandmother by user tats and tails. I apologize now as this is long. Issues with my grandma have been building up for years and now they are finally coming to a head as I am being told I am not allowed to have a baby shower with my side of the family unless I invite her. I'm 27 F boyfriend, 28 male, and we are current 27 weeks and 4 days pregnant. My family had no contact with my grandparents for about 8 years due to a falling out with my mother in which I witnessed. The fight happened when I was in middle school, so my grandparents were not there as I matured and grew into the person I am today. My grandpa ended up getting cancer, and this was the reason we brushed everything off to support him. Before my grandpa had passed, he asked my mom to promise that my GMA wouldn't be alone. I never made this promise. When I found out I was pregnant, it was because I got sick and kinda snapped on BF. We had been trying for a while and my mom asked if that could be the reason. A few days later I bought a test and my mother called while I was at the store. It was positive and I didn't want to tell her over the phone, so I said it was negative. The F got home from work and we had a very special moment as I had made a box with little baby trinkets and a positive test to surprise him. I had guilt for lying to my mom, so we decided to go tell her. This was my first mistake. As soon as we told my mom, she was excited and insisted we tell my sister. We had to have been only 6 weeks along at the time, and I told her that we weren't going to tell anyone else because it was too soon. She insisted and began guilt-tripping me as she is my sister. We ended up caving and going to her house the same night. My mother put the box at my sister's door, rang the doorbell, and ran back to the car to hide. My sister was excited. But then my mother began insisting we tell my sister-in-law because it was only fair as my sister knew. And how would she feel not knowing, and my sister did. I was called daily for a week, being guilt-tripped into telling my sister-in-law. I told my mother after we told sister-in-law we would not be telling anyone else, which she agreed to. We told my sister-in-law with the same box, and she began jumping up and down with excitement. Right after my mother started saying I needed to tell my G-ma. Remind you, this is the woman who I hadn't had a relationship with. I was cordial with her. I'd say hello, attempt to avoid her, and give her a hug goodbye. She is a bitter old woman who thinks she can say or do whatever she wants and that everyone has to accept it because that's just who she is and everyone else has just accepted this. I'm going to list a few key moments below of things she has done towards me. She has always made offhanded remarks and snide comments. Feel free to skip past these as it will be long. Just attempting to give more context as my family act close on why I want nothing to do with her. When I was in middle school, my best friend's apartment burned down right before her birthday and Christmas. I was working with my grandma doing team penning as the flag girl. I yelled at the man when they got the wrong number calf to the other side of a gate. I had spent the whole day collecting donations and got a good amount of money. Well, my GMA said she was going to take it all to RC Willie's to put it on a gift card. Anytime I would bring it up, she would brush it off, and when I talked to my mom, she would tell me to forget about it. I never saw the money again. A few years ago, my cousin was coming to our state to play a gig. I was already planning to go to support/surprise him, and my grandma decided to go but couldn't find anyone to go with her. She ended up calling me, and I picked her up and brought her along. In the car, she learned that I couldn't still carry and began having a tantrum like a child and demanding that I leave my piece in the car or I better take her home. Where we were going was a sketchy part of town, so there was no way I was leaving it in the car. She threw a fit for the rest of the night, and I could not wait to get her home. She had mentioned needing help with her yard as all of the leaves had dropped and no one would help her. I made the drive to her house, and the whole thing turned into me doing all the work and her micromanaging me on how to do it. This would have been different if I was being paid. I ended up leaving before the job was done. After my grandpa had passed, she claimed none of the money for his headstone. My grandpa had a motorcycle that was paid off collecting dust, so I agreed to buy the bike and the money would go towards his headstone. She ended up getting an expensive dog that wasn't actually what was advertised, saying my grandpa knew it was her favorite and he would have wanted her to have it. She already has a dog she pays no attention to. She is a poor animal owner, does not exercise her dogs, and they defecate in her home. Yet she claimed I was a horrible dog owner because I lived in an apartment. I was always going on hikes or to the dog park after work and on the weekends. I drove separate to meet my family somewhere, and once we were leaving to go back to my parents, she jumped in my car to ride with me so she could sit in the front. She belittled my driving, music taste, and other life choices like my tattoos all the way back to my parents' home. In the time she has tried to ride in my car since, I had stated I wasn't going back to my parents and would end up going home. For my birthday, I received some gift cards. My Texas Roadhouse gift card vanished off the table as I hadn't put them in my purse yet. I had asked out loud if anyone had seen it and glanced at her. Once she was about to leave, she came up to me with it, saying it somehow ended up in her purse. She began making trinkets with family photos that included my ex-fiancé. We had photos excluding him and would tell me I needed to cut him out of all of them as she wasn't able to. She is the type that tries to kiss on the lips. I have always found this word to each their own. I have made it very clear over the years this is not something that I do, and she has continuously tried to overstep this. This will come up later. I refuse to go out to eat with her as she is the type to complain about everything or blame her mistakes on the waiter. Examples are sweet potato being too sweet, too much cheese on her grilled cheese, eating the meat out of a crab leg, and belittling the server that there was no meat. Well, my mother had been pressuring since I had told my sister-in-law to tell my GMA. Calling multiple times a week saying how would she feel and it's not fair, everyone else knows and she doesn't. It was so bad we got into a fight on Father's Day and I began bleeding the next day. Luckily, everything was fine with baby girl. My mom called a few weeks later asking why I wasn't sending her ultrasounds, and she hadn't heard from me in a minute, and I explained because every conversation turned into needing to tell my GMA. She began going off about how she just wants to tell the world and that she isn't allowed to be excited. This turned into a whole argument. It wasn't fair that my best friend was the first to know. She helped confirm the test. It wasn't fair my coworkers knew I had been extremely sick, so they found out pretty early. I was given conditions. I wasn't allowed to tell anyone else until I told my GMA. I had to tell my GMA and my grandpa on my father's side the same day. I was not allowed to do it a week apart or even a day apart. It had to be the same day. Being given conditions and the amount of pressure to tell people made me not want to tell anyone. We finally got to a point where we were comfortable telling people. I had bought fake lottery tickets and got my dad to bring grandpa to his house. One of my uncles was with him, and it took them a minute to understand, but they were both excited. The last time I had seen NY grandmother was at my niece's birthday party. I had already been putting distinct between us. While BF and I were leaving, she loudly in front of everyone said, "OP, do I not get a hug?" She was tucked into a back nook at the table, so I loudly stated I would not be climbing over the table. Back to telling them about my pregnancy. My mom snapped at her on the phone as they had planned to have dinner, and GMA decided she was going to go meet up with my aunt, who cancelled, which would have made her late for dinner. Once she arrived, the family talked for a minute, then I gave her one of the fake lottery tickets. She began hollering with excitement, then dug her long fake nails into my head and yanked my head around, trying to give me a kiss on the lips. I put my hand in her face and said, "Absolutely not. You know I do not do that." She began going off on why I don't kiss her. She doesn't care where my lips have been. She kisses everyone. I made it very known in front of everyone that I do not kiss anyone besides BF on the lips, as I think it is gross. My mother says I was being dramatic and that she was just joking. My sister says that she was just excited. I see it as her trying to step over my boundaries again. BF and I went to my second cousin's wedding. None of my immediate family was going, as it was a 1.5-hour drive. We went and caught up with family, and it was a beautiful day. Well, GMA showed up asking people where I was, as she needed to talk to me. No one knew she was coming, and my cousin came and found me and told me. Well, I avoided her as this was not the time or place. As BF and I will leave, she once again loudly say, "Opie." I went over to her and she says, "I don't know what I have done to you." Mind you, we are at a wedding surrounded by family. I gave her a half hug as she was sitting down and told her she crossed my boundary by trying to force a kiss on me, and that for the last 10 plus years she has been extremely mean, and that I am the type to not just drop it anymore. Her response was, "Well, I just love you." I said, "That's fine, but it's not an excuse." I walked away and gave hugs to the rest of the family. I learned later that right after she hugged one of my cousins, she was about to cry and left before we even did. Now to the current issue. My family is saying that I cannot have a baby shower unless she is invited. That I have to suck it up for my mom, as it is her mother, she is family. That by me not wanting to invite her is me trying to force them to cut her off or to pick sides. I don't believe that I should have to try to avoid someone on a day that is about BF, me and our unborn child. If my mom or sister-in-law threw it for me, she has to be invited. I suggested doing it myself and having it at my home. Once again, I was told I would have to invite her. I am being told that I am just being mean. It is not fair to my mother, as she is the one that will be punished. That I am forcing my mother into picking between her mom or her daughter. They can't believe that I would rather not have a baby shower than invited her. What do I do? Other women who has been so mean to me to show up. Not of one, as I would rather avoid any conflict or awkward situations altogether. I mentioned to my sister what happens when we are opening gifts. She says to put on a fake smile, hug her and say thank you. I was disowned for finally growing a spine by user Pinachula. I'm 22, the oldest child to my parents, with a younger brother, 16. We weren't well off by any mean, but for most of my childhood we had all we could ask for. Anyways, fast forward, my brother is born 2009. Now I suddenly became forgotten. I was the automatic parent, and all he did or didn't do was my fault. I never got toys anymore because my brother was so spoiled he'd cry if I got anything, and my parents folded like a house of cards in a very gentle breeze. So I'd always save up to buy myself whatever since age 7. My parent found my money and always took it. saying "is for bread, is for electricity," which I understood because things got worse for a while that we had nothing. But then, my uncle, mom's side, who was addicted to substances, would steal from me and they did nothing. He's going through the time. So I started hiding my money, to the point that I had enough to throw myself a budget-friendly eating party. It didn't have much, but it was enough for me. My parents after the party said, "See what we did for you." I booked everything, paid for every one of my friends, arranged transport, no adults besides myself and the clerk involved. I had about 1,000 money extra from friends gifting it me. Mom went, "We don't have money for the cable." He did this almost daily. What I'm trying to say is nothing was mine. Now I'm 22, just got out of major intestinal surgery, and my parents decided to abandon me. Why? Because while I was in critical condition and they visited me, my dad asked for gas money and I said no. Because I'm bedridden in hospital with no real lucid thoughts because of all the heavy meds. Then fast forward to getting out of hospital, my brother calls me to ask me to buy him a phone or give him my old one. Which I replied to, "No, you don't deserve a phone, blah blah. You didn't even ask if I was okay or have the gall to try and pretend hush perhaps." My mom went on a full-blown rant about how ungrateful I am and that she gave me everything. And now I'm disrespectful, selfish even. Then started listing the things she did for me since birth. Main point of tension was that my mom paid for private school, university, and told me to do everything down to the setup, filing, etc. I told her that this money stick is only for 1 year and continued to stress this. She brushed it off. Now blames me for the debt she's in. She blames me for all her financial issues. I was shocked, but simply replied, "You say I'm the child, yet ask me to support 3 people with no job, no capabilities to find a job or even to recover." Sent and blocked both dad and mom. Now I'm truly alone. Notes. Apologies for my spelling in advance. Expected to pay 50/50 when I'm not even 50% of the household. By user accomplished exit 7,441. Hello Reddit, it is me 24th once again. On my profile there are a few posts regarding my family situation, but who wants to read all that XD? So here's a TLDR, I'm a recent graduate and working full-time on a fixed-term contract. I moved back in with my mom for my final year of university, and while I tried to move away a few months ago, I had to put that on pause due to being on the verge of a mental breakdown. My situation is a mix of being in a vulnerable situation and having a mother that treats me as a resource rather than an independent human being. She expects money, labor, time, but nothing is ever good enough. She does not talk, she demands to maintain control. The current situation is that I'm still living with her, babysitting 6 hours per week as a minimum, paying money towards rent and bills 33%, which I view as fair, and fully cleaning the house up fully on the weekends. To be clear, she does and has not paid for my food etc. since I was 16. The household includes me, her, my sibling, her fiancé is also here about 3 days per week. 2 weeks ago I paid her my share towards rents and bills etc., but she decided to demand money again. This would mean be paying 66% in 1 month. Hell no. I am not okay with that, and she was not being polite about it. I told her that I will give her my share on the same day as last month, since last month I already initiated setting a date and paying on the same day per month, which she indicated agreement towards, but she decided that this is not acceptable and instead got very angry and told me that I should move out and that I have 2 weeks. The irony of this situation is that while she came into the room, I was literally sending someone a message about arranging a viewing. The main thing for me is that I think paying towards bills, rent etc. is fair, but I will not go 50/50 if I'm not 50% of the household, especially when I provide other sources of assistance that help her save money. And I will not tolerate being spoken to like that. My main concern since I started work is what will happen after I am unemployed again. I am not foolish. I always start the employment search far before I become unemployed because I know how competitive it is and how much time it takes. But she does not see that, nor does she care. She believes that one can find a job at the snap of a finger. I started work only a month after graduating, and yet she complains that I started late. She is so detached from the lived reality people go through. So, what will happen once my contract ends? Well, I know for sure it will not be good. She will still expect money while putting other responsibilities onto me and holding my potential situation over my head. Due to this, I know that I need to move out, and I was already looking for options. If I move out, Worst case possible, I can apply for universal credit and struggle on that until I find new work. If I stay, I will be broker in a toxic environment. I've already been arranging and attending viewings. I just hate the situation because to her nothing is ever good enough. Also, for context, before anyone complains, she gets her paid income, then also money from B&B 4 rooms. It's not even her property. Her partner just lets her do as she wishes with it. Even now that it's the quiet season, she still gets decent money from it, e.g. last month equals 1.8k after dedications, about 1.6k in profit, then add in her actual income from her job. So no, this is not the type of situation where she actually needs me to pay 50%/50% plus due to the situation. She's just responsible with money. I already know she will want me to buy a new cooktop because the current one is making weird noises. Electric induction. The house we live in, I will move out ASAP, is rented, and a few months ago she literally fitted a whole new kitchen. I'm credit crazy. I tried to talk her out of it and so did others, and now the stove is acting up. Not surprised because they don't make things to last. She will try to put blame on me. She always does soon, and will demand that I buy a new one. I think it must be just an electrical issue with the stove. She wanted me to buy a new washing machine last month, implying but not directly demanded because it was acting up. She overfilled it with laundry.